Good evening, everyone. This is Scott Seaton, music director of the North State Symphony, and I'm with a very special guest this evening for our next installment of Musician Accents. This is a series that we started in the past year and a half or so, but this is the first time we've done it live, and I'm excited to jump into this unedited world of interviews with you. And my guest this evening is Susie Lundberg, who is our principal oboist, but also as we end the 20 days looking back on the North State Symphony, Susie has a special part in that history because she was the first executive director of the North State Symphony. So I'm going to bring her in, and we're going to learn more about Susie's background and also chat about the origins of the symphony. So please welcome Susie Lundberg. Hi, Susie.
Hello.
Great to have you with me this evening.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you are the principal oboist of the North State Symphony, which has been in existence for 20 years now. I'm sure it doesn't seem like that long, does it?
Not really.
But we'll get into some of the interesting things about the origins of the symphony soon. But let's talk about you first. And first of all, where are you from, and how? Tell us about the early part of your life and how you really got involved in music, and how and maybe how that led to you picking up the oboe for the first time.
Okay. I was mostly raised in Woodland, California, just about an hour and a half south of Chico.
Mm-hmm.
And I started playing the clarinet in 5th grade in school.
Okay.
And I, in 7th grade, I think it was, the junior high band director said, "I want to talk to you after class." And he said, "You know what this is?" And he said, I want you to try playing the oboe. Would you do that?" And because there were a bunch of clarinets and flutes and
there always are.
Yeah, in band. So I said, sure, and he had a reed, and I don't remember, I have no idea where he got it, or where I got my reeds when I was first learning. It's a miracle I was able to make a sound, but I picked it up and did my best. And I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have any private lessons, and that would have been really helpful. But I managed and played all the way through high school.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the sound of the orchestra, though. I think I got that from from taking ballet from 5 years old to 17 years old. And of course there, we warmed up to Bach, and we, performed to Tchaikovsky, Prokofiev, and I remember standing backstage at the performance and hearing the big, sound system. Well, unfortunately, not live music for our little recitals, but I just thought it was thrilling to hear that music. That was really something for me.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely, I remember now, there was a really good oboist in my fairly smaller town than Chico. Looking back on it, he lived right around behind from me, and I think he played in I don't think he played in the LA Philharmonic, but maybe one of the other pretty well-known orchestras in Los Angeles, and I could have had lessons from him, but I didn't ever. That would have been maybe things would have changed. I remember not really realizing that you could get really good if you practiced. I didn't know that. I just thought, well, I'm this good at this instrument, and this other person is really good. I didn't. So a teacher would have helped with that.
Oh, absolutely. So for everyone joining us, I'm here chatting this evening with Susie Lundberg, our principal oboist, and also the, as we'll learn soon, the first executive director of the North State Symphony. And she's telling us about her background and how she got into oboe. And actually, your background is not dissimilar from mine in that respect. I started playing in 5th grade as well. And I actually picked up oboe in 7th grade because there was a lack of oboes as well. I was never good at oboe. Still, I'm not good at oboe. But of course, it has a remarkable similarity to the saxophone in terms of fingering, and but sound production is very different. And I could never imagine myself as a serious oboist and one such that spends hours and hours in a small room with reeds and little knives for little intricate touches on small pieces of cane. That never really appealed to me. So my oboe playing faded out relatively rapidly. But I'm so happy that you kept up with it.
Oh, well, thank you. I after 5th grade and 7th grade and just kind of getting by, I went to college and didn't, I picked up a little saxophone, but I'm not near as good as you are. I just could barely play second tenor sax in the jazz band, in the marching band, because they don't want you to play the oboe in the marching band. I'm not really sure. Maybe they're afraid we'd break the reed too often, or it's bad for the instrument. I don't know.
I think especially if you have a higher quality wooden oboe, it's probably not going to be great for.
I wouldn't take mine
out. So you played some jazz.
Well,
so
I
you
said,
played some jazz.
I could play as a member of the group, but I didn't take any solos.
Okay. And so you only did that for a little while.
About 3 years in high school. Yeah, we had to be dedicated. It was before first period, so it was early morning jazz.
So in college, what was your actual major?
Well, okay, so I finished high school, thought, okay, I'm going to college now. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I majored in business, and I didn't own an instrument ever. I was always using the school's instrument, so I just thought, okay, done with that. Didn't even think about continuing. And I did sing in the women's chorus at Cal Poly. It was hard to get in, so I didn't make it into the university singers. But and then strangely, so I didn't touch an oboe for 15 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
And when I was in my early 30s, was that 15? Well, anyway, something like that. In my early 30s, somebody had, a women's chorus, strange coincidence, wanted to do a piece with women's chorus and solo oboe. And they came up to me and said, hey, I heard you used to play the oboe. And I said, well, yeah, used to is right. I'd be like a beginner. But my sister-in-law is an oboe player.
Oh, okay.
And she had a new oboe, and she goes, well, I was talking to her about it, and I said, oh, could you imagine after not playing for 15 years, and plus I wasn't even that good anyway. And she said, why don't you get my old oboe out of my parents' house and fool around with it? So, and I played for a few weeks, and it was painful. My lips tickled, but I did remember more than I thought I would. And so I ended up telling that music director I would do that, and I just committed. So I thought, well, here I go. And then that just led to other things. I started taking lessons, and in my early 30s got extremely serious about it. And I had little kids, but I wasn't working, and a very supportive husband. And I got myself an excellent teacher, Neil Tatman, who had played in the Sacramento Symphony and went on to the University of Arizona. Did everything I could to spend as many hours as I could practicing making reeds. And then pretty soon I decided to get a way of focusing on oboe and getting as good as I could on it was to get my master's in music at Chico State. And there was a music department chair at that time who was very supportive of that idea. And I started taking classes and getting my prerequisites for music. And every paper, every assignment was about, to me, it was about the oboe. Music history. How did the oboe, how did Brahms use the oboe in his choral masterworks? Everything. And of course, lots of practicing. And then, so I somehow got the nerve to ask then Chico Symphony music director, Dr. Colson, David Colson, as a grad student, if I could audition. I heard they were looking for an English horn player.
Okay.
And they liked to use as many students as they could. And I auditioned, and that was somehow he let me have that solo. And that was my first ever orchestra experience.
So when was that?
Maybe 1999,
Okay.
98.
Okay. So just a few years before the Chico Symphony dissolved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I was in the last 3 years maybe of the Chico Symphony.
Okay.
And my first solo was Dvorak's New World Symphony.
Well, that's a great place to start.
I can't believe I did that.
So maybe that goes along, but one of my questions for you is, do you have like memorable, not necessarily North State, but a memorable or formative musical experience that sort of kept you going, like maybe even prior to that? Does anything stick out in your mind?
As far as being an oboe player or just musician in general?
Maybe just a musician in general. Like, is there anything that said that music has to be in my life? Did anything happen like that for you?
It had to be something about, I was driven to play in the orchestra. So I guess at some point when I was really spending hours on the orchestra and listening to the music, in orchestral music like Beethoven symphonies and also some solo music, but really the orchestra. Hearing how the oboe fit into the orchestra, whether it was a solo sailing over what was not really a solo because the first violin section is playing, but I'm also playing that,
right.
Adding that texture to all of a sudden the bottom dropping out of everything, and it's really quiet, and all of a sudden there's this little oboe voice. Or playing with the whole woodwind section and then answering with the strings or the brass, and I don't know, you could tell I was excited about it, and
of course
I just wanted to sit in the middle of that, and so I just thought, I'm gonna get in the orchestra. That was my passion.
Oh, and the oboe is a unique instrument in that the timbre, especially, makes it one of those instruments that naturally soars, and it's a very discernible timbre. One of the reasons that the oboe is the instrument that tunes the orchestra. It's like one of the primary leadership positions in the ensemble. Do you, along all these years of being a musician, have you gathered a favorite repertoire or a favorite composer or even a favorite piece?
Well, again, I love Brahms, seems like everybody else you talk to. I just think he was so good at taking advantage of, knew how to write in so many ways. And one of them is, how can I make best use of this particular instrument? So that's really nice, not to mention just the beauty of the texture, harmony, modulation section.
Sure, of course.
And Beethoven similarly. But a big moment for me was playing Barber's Violin Concerto, also Brahms' Violin Concerto. It seems like all the violin concertos, more rather than composers, have awesome oboe parts usually at the beginning of the second movement.
Right.
So Barber, with Bill Barbini playing violin, he was the concertmaster of the Sacramento Symphony. And my daughter's teacher, she's a good violinist, and she's played with the North State Symphony. She played with us when she was a high school student, and yeah. So, but I love playing Mahler, Shostakovich, Sibelius. I have so many favorites, and I do appreciate newer or living composers, because they always give me and all of us probably a good challenge, and stretch my limits, and
Well, that's certainly something we try to do as often as we can, as you know.
Yeah, it's good for us.
So you've been principal oboe since the symphony's inception, is that correct?
Yes, that was an interesting story. Because I was a grad student, and then I finished.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I can't even remember, but I had to organize. Well, go ahead and ask your question. Yes, I was the first principal oboist. I became principal oboe right before I became principal oboe of the Chico Symphony.
Right.
But then we had all auditions. Everything was auditioned for the North State Symphony. And
we'll get into that in a second. So in your, speaking of oboe first, so in your 20 years as principal oboe of the North State Symphony, is there a particular concert or a particular, maybe even set of concerts that are most memorable for you?
Well, the first North State Symphony concerts was really memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminded of it the other day at the inauguration ceremony.
Okay.
It was September 2001.
Right.
And we were going to have our first concert on a Saturday night, and we were trying to decide whether to cancel it or not on Tuesday because of all of the terrorist activity in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And we decided to go ahead, and I think Kyle Pickett had already decided to play the Star Spangled Banner before, but there was just something really moving about going ahead and doing it, hoping that it would heal people to hear live music, and just playing that national anthem that day was really touching. And we got so many comments about that. Mm-hmm. And we just went ahead and getting together and playing beautiful music together with an audience just seemed like somehow was a right thing to do. And also reminded me of the campfires. And after we played that concert in Redding, that was memorable too, to go ahead and go up to Redding in 2018,
right,
in November, and go ahead and we were able to play that because the smoke hadn't arrived there yet.
Oh yeah, no, that's and those are great memories.
I guess they're not really musical so much. But.
Well, no, it's important. I mean, it's a testament to the power of music, and it reminds me of that particular Bernstein quote, which I can't remember verbatim, but our reply to violence will be to make music more intensely than ever before. And it's in times of duress, in times where it seems like there's chaos all around us, music is an extraordinarily unifying factor. And I think it is important that it remains that language, that entity that continues to bring us together, even in times where it seems like there's too much else going on. But I'm happy that because I'm sure those concerts are memorable for everyone else that was involved, and certainly for me, for the 2018 concert, which was Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto. Well, I remember the soloist. I don't remember what else was on the program, but sorry, was it Tchaikovsky? Yeah, I believe it was Tchaikovsky with Timothy Chewy. But I mean, it's so important to still be there, to still be present, to still have to give people an echo chamber for all these emotions that everyone is feeling as a community.
Mozart's G minor symphony.
That's right, the G minor symphony. What a piece. So with the North State Symphony, in 2001, a lot happened before that opening concert, that all-powerful concert with the national anthem. So tell us about your involvement and with that, the challenges that maybe both communities had, that they faced and had to overcome with respect to the formation of the symphony.
Well, Chico State and the music department were very supportive of the symphony at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and they paid the music director's whole salary with benefits, and
Right.
So that was a nice draw for hiring a music director. And I was one of the musicians who had played in the Redding Symphony
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of years. Me and a couple others, I remember we got asked to come be on a little committee or somebody asked us what we thought of Kyle, and we gave our 2 cents and said we thought he was a good conductor.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, but as far as the communities, so, we were just, as musicians, we like, great, let's play more. That's always nice for us. There's a little, the symphony in Chico needed help. We needed, it was going to benefit the orchestra to have the financial support of donors in Redding.
Right.
And Redding people, those donors and music lovers, really missed having an orchestra come to their town.
Right.
But the challenges, there were the Redding board members that I think Kyle helped gather together with the music department chair and the development director of the humanities and fine arts at that time, helped gather the people. And I'm pretty sure a couple board members are still, were founding board members of the North State Symphony.
Right.
Or at least their regents, like Gene Nichols and
Of course.
Gail Tillis, maybe. And so, but just the logistics of, where are we going to have meetings? So it didn't feel like, Redding really was part of it. Like it didn't, we really wanted it to be a 2-city organization. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
want it to be just, so the university was supportive and provided rehearsal space, percussion equipment. I'm not sure what they still provide these days because things have changed, but we wanted to, so we met in Red Bluff for the first year. Board meetings, I was the orchestra manager. That's what they called it. It was supposed to be 20 hours a week, but it was more like 50. And we didn't have, and I had just finished grad school. Personally, I decided to take that job, part-time job, instead of, I just got a phone call from someone at UC Davis, and I was almost gonna get my PhD in musicology. And I just decided, well, I really care about an orchestra thriving where I live. And of course I want to play more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't want to be on that road to Davis several times. So we didn't have remote learning back then. So I decided not to do that and to take the job with the North State Symphony and work with Kyle Pickett and Gene Nichols and the board but just figuring out how to get all the chairs and stands up to Redding, logistical issues like, is the stage big enough? I mean, early on, I think we did a concert in Red Bluff, and the stage has changed there, and it was really kind of like, are we going to fit? And I mean, at all? And are we going to fall down when we try to climb up with our bass or our harp?
Right.
And the lighting, there wasn't. We had to, just lots of practical things. And just, getting the Redding people to just trust that we were a viable organization that wasn't going to just close down. But they were so good and supportive. It was really small, over time, I would say the importance of the individual donor who just comes to concerts and writes a check for some extra every year
Hmm.
has just steadily grown over the course of this whole 20 years. And, it's not some huge corporate sponsor that if they pull out, we're going to go, you know, be in big trouble. So I just always really appreciated the very many people who give and support us. And well, for me also, because I was on the phone, we didn't, hardly anybody emailed back then. Not that many people yet. I mean, it would happen right around then, right?
Right.
So I think I started emailing, but a lot of phone calls had to be made. And hello, let's see, you play the viola and you live in Cupertino. We're starting a new orchestra called the North State Symphony, and we're 4 hours away. Yeah, we need you to come over 2 weekends. And who's your music director? And, it was hard to get people to say yes.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of phone calls and a lot of calling back and forth, and a lot of finding musician hosts. Strangely, I mean, it was mostly just me with maybe one student assistant that the university provided via work study.
Right.
So we didn't have a big staff, and we weren't trying to do as much as you guys do and have done in the past several, 10 years. I was the executive director for a very short time, and you can probably guess why. I wanted to play, and it was hard to play, be principal oboist when somebody was handing you their contract right before you start trying to tune the orchestra. And,
Right.
But anyway. So yeah, those were some of the challenges. But as once we got some of the people when we'd get them to make the drive and see that it was a better musical experience than they thought it was going to be for them as a musician. And also because our community members as hosts for the musicians and as, people willing to come hear us.
Right.
I think and because our communities are beautiful, Chico and Redding, I think they like coming up here. And of course, the people who live here and play like I do, I live right here, really love and appreciate having it right in my own town.
Right.
Everybody, just thought, well, this is, and the audience members would come and I think see that the quality improved from what they might have heard 10 years ago in 1990.
Oh, sure.
And that was because it was part of the mission of the North State Symphony to increase the quality of our performances.
Right. And, no change is easy. And I'm sure that upon the formation of the North State Symphony, there was probably a lot of hesitation, a lot of pushback, especially if you have to re-audition an orchestra, and if you're a player in the community, I'm sure that can carry a large amount of stress. Fortunately for Chico and Redding, there are other orchestras, so it's a community of orchestras, and I think the vision for the North State Symphony was to have as high quality of an ensemble as possible, and for people to keep everyone else in the ensemble accountable. And it's never an easy thing, but you can tell, like you were talking about 10 years before that, and even from now to what I imagine it was back then, the quality, I think, has just continued to rise. And that, combined with all of the other aspects you touched on, from our donor base increasing, because our donors are crucial. We could not do so much without them. And our hosts, our musician hosts, not a lot of symphonies have this sort of setup that we do. And I think it's such a great thing to have, where these unique and personal relationships are built with our supporters, with our patrons, community members, and donors, with the musicians themselves, and give them that extra reason to come to the concerts, but also that glimpse of what happens behind the scenes and how the whole process sort of unfolds and is brought together. But yeah, I mean, approximately 50% of the orchestra now does not reside in Chico or Redding or in that area in between. And that is such an important number, because that means that we as an organization have gotten out there. I mean, we have musicians who come from as far as Memphis, Tennessee, and Tucson, Arizona, not to mention our other sort of faraway locals like Bend, Oregon, and even Southern California sometimes, along with all of those from the Bay Area and Sacramento, and tons of other places that I'm not thinking of, especially Arcata and Eureka with our concertmaster and our principal cellist. I mean, it's such a great collective of musicians, and each member brings such a great enthusiasm and energy. And when you combine all of these, you get experiences like I had when I first stepped on the podium back in February 2015, nearly 6 years ago now. And it's a very special ensemble, and it's really all of our supporters that help make it that way. And I can't wait for a post-pandemic world when we can continue to foster those relationships between the musicians and our hosts, because that is so crucial in the propulsion of this ensemble forward. That's how we get to where we're going. But yeah, I know it's been quite a 20 years. Anything to add from those early days? I mean, you also touched on things. It was a challenge to figure out where to meet and how to bring this together, and that's been an ever evolving process. I mean, it's really only been recently that it wasn't just the Chico board and the Redding board, that it really was a North State Symphony board, and that has been a huge challenge, because everyone sort of saw everyone else's role as something different, and it's just unifying that vision that hopefully we're getting closer to making everyone on the same page, and getting stronger every day because of that.
Right. Yeah. Boy, us talking about how it is, and now that it's been almost a year since we've done any music together,
Right.
I mean, as an orchestra, just almost makes me want to cry. I mean, I know you must miss it. It's your livelihood, and I really miss it.
No, it's definitely not performing myself. There's this gaping hole that is, I feed off the energy of you and the musicians when we come together, and I'm very thrilled that we are among the orchestras that have stepped up and are able to do things in some format in this virtual realm. We've already done 3 virtual performances. We have another unique one coming up in February, and hopefully we can all get back to live performances. But it's we gotta look out for each other first and foremost. We gotta make sure that it's safe for everyone, for our patrons to come sit or be in proximity to other people. So hopefully those days are not too far around the corner.
Yeah, I know you have been wanting to do Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Yes.
And that just seems like that will be perfectly appropriate when we come back together.
I hope so. And it's a big piece, not just because it's a long piece, but it's a huge piece because of the sheer amount of people. And even if we aren't at a point next season where we can have that many people in a space, there are some ideas that I have of hopefully being able to do that piece in some format. But we'll see. Sort of a merging together of everything we've been going through: the virtual worlds, the live music. But we'll see. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big challenge.
Yeah, but Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is a piece that needs to happen. It's time. It's time. The unstoppable Beethoven has to be ever persistent for this time. Yeah, because we've just postponed it so many times now, from being May to September to not at all this season to hopefully in the 21-22 season.
We did do it twice as the North State Symphony, so I'm lucky I've got to play 2 times.
You've somehow squeezed that many people onto those tiny little stages.
Yeah. And
Well, Susie, thanks for sharing your insight onto the birth of the symphony and your involvement and your passion for the oboe and making music. And I and our staff and board and the whole orchestra are so happy to have you as our one of our leaders in the group. And I can't wait to be able to make music with you some point, hopefully in the near future. So thank you for taking time and chatting with me this evening. And thank you everyone who's tuned in. I really quickly, we actually have I think there's a question. Let me just scroll up.
Oh.
Oh yeah. So here we go. Love to hear more about being in the arts in a rural community and the challenges and opportunities that brings. So do you have any input on that question?
That's my son, by the way.
I figured there might have been a connection there.
I don't know. You could probably answer that. I think it's just wonderful to have an orchestra of our quality here. You know, people, if a lot of times, you know, people would say, well, we like to go to San Francisco and hear the San Francisco Symphony. And of course they're stellar, but then, you know, if I could convince them to come and hear us, that they maybe heard 30 years ago, since it is 100 and something year old symphony, Chico Symphony Orchestra is over 100 years old. Right. They could see that this thing that's local in this pretty rural area is really good. And, you know, maybe I'll still drive to San Francisco, but I could also come here and hear something really good. It's just amazing for us.
There's the fact that you get to hear, you know, such professional, high quality music in smaller communities. You know, Chico and Redding, just around 100,000 people each, and but I think one of the things that is so great about being an arts organization in smaller communities is that you have such opportunity to create unique experiences and really dig into the community that can't necessarily happen if you have an orchestra like the San Francisco Symphony. And that's something that is ever, just as I've been talking about evolution, it's something that's ongoing. And for me as an artistic leader, it's something that's very exciting to always find, what else can we do? How else can we be a representation of the communities that we serve? And that's an ongoing question, and I love it. I love the fact that, you know, maybe we can create a concert that's Stravinsky dance party in one of the little dance clubs in Chico. Maybe we can create like a Beethoven and Bratz, you know, concert or something like that. Maybe we can partner with all the local food stands and create some sort of outdoor event. You know, there's all kinds of things that we can do that just really can't happen in larger areas. And I think that's one of the advantages of being a smaller an organization serving smaller communities, is that you really get to dig in and find out what's possible.
Yeah.
So great question. Let's see if there's anything else. Well, of course, let's see. Of course, yeah, we hope we can do it too.
My other child. Thank you, children. Oh, here's somebody who's not my child.
Well, this isn't a question. This is our principal timpanist, Brian Simpson. I have to drive that far.
Yes.
Yeah, Brian. Brian also talks about his wonderful hosts, Robert and Sam. Also, Robert is a fantastic cellist and all-around great guy in the symphony, and Sam, just a wonderful patron as well.
Yes, they've hosted for 20 years for sure.
Yeah, and you know, that brings me on to, you know, one last thing is, you know, we're so fortunate to have, you know, again, these relationships and chair sponsors, and to have people actually sort of adopt the musicians of the symphony. And, you know, for the longest times, you have been sponsored by Richard and Giovanni Jackson. So I just want to give a shout out to them, because they're very special people, and to them and to all our chair sponsors, thank you guys so much for for keeping our musicians alive, keeping our symphony making music. We couldn't do it without you.
It's nice to be sponsored.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if you aren't sponsoring someone, please go to our website. There are still a few musicians who don't have chair sponsors, so please check that out. We have another question here. Let's see, what are you doing? Oh. What are we doing to maintain the morale of our musicians during this time of COVID? That is a great question. We're trying to do whatever we can because we are limited in what we can do. Our first 3 concerts, for example, Heidi, hopefully you've been able to see that, but we were only able to get up to 5 or so musicians in a recording session. And we have even stricter guidelines for our February performance. So for February, for example, we are trying to engage musicians who have not participated in our first few performances. But the caveat is this time around, we can't actually get together in person at all. So everything is going to be done virtually for our February show. And that's where my dual hat as music director and video editor is coming in handy nowadays. But we're trying to do series like this very one, Musician Accents, where we're highlighting various musicians of the symphony. We have our Just Asks. We have other series called Cracking the Score, and as well as our virtual content. We're doing as much as we can to not only keep the community engaged, but to keep our very all-important musicians engaged. And it's a tough time for everyone, but hopefully, as Susie and I have been talking about, hopefully that time is coming to a close sometime in the near future. So thank you for the question here.
Yeah, and Elizabeth has been in touch with us a lot, keeping us, asking us for our ideas. I appreciate that the executive director has been, kind of keeping us updated with what you and she and your team are, trying to be, how you're trying to be creative and get us playing as soon as you can.
Oh, I can't wait, Susie. I can't wait. We have a comment from Lori Coop, one of our other dedicated supporters. Thank you, Lori. All right, I think that might be it for the questions. Again, if you guys have any further questions or comments, feel free, even after this live session has ended, feel free to respond to the chat, and we can answer your questions as they pop up in the future. So, Susie, once again, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see everyone soon, not just in our sessions and interviews like these, but hopefully our virtual and live performances coming up. So everyone have a great evening, and thank you again, Susie.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.